vintage composition books? Yes, please. Hey, it's Kara. Welcome to My Take at the Lake. So, I've been using these composition books as my daily journals these days. I thought I would do one every month, and then summer turned out to be the whole season, and so I wanted to do a fall one. But everything in fall is these, usually, generally speaking, are these wonderful, vintagey, warm, soothing colors. And to put that against the pristine white of a new piece of paper makes my brain divide. It just says, new, old, bright, vintage. They shouldn't go together. They just don't go together too well. And I wanted my whole journal to be warm and cozy. I'll show you this kit that I got from Etsy in a little bit. I'm not sure. It's somebody new to me. I've not purchased from that person before, but I really, really liked 90% of the kit. So I'll show that to you in a little bit. But what we're here for is I decided to vintage up an entire composition book all at once. I had teased on my community tab I was doing some studio experiments, and this is one of them. I figured this one deserved its own video. The rest of the experiments I'll show on a separate video altogether. And I have some video of me doing this I'll put in here and there to show you what I did. But I wanted to show you the end result. She's nice, and, you know, once paper gets wet, weird things happen. And it's kind of kitty-wampus. You know, it comes out a bit here. You can see that the front cover is jutting forward. You know, there's a lot of issues here. But I love the way that it turned out. Front is all clearly vintage. Brand new one, vintage one. Brand new one, vintage one. Brand new one, vintage one. I think it's fantastic. I don't know how it's going to be to write on, but we'll see. We'll see. And I did it 2 different ways, and I'm not exactly sure which is best. Oh, look at here. I didn't know that. Did you know that this is just a cover? Because here's the writing on the cardboard, and this is just something they glue on. I will have to glue that on. I always thought this is one printed piece. It is not. I might just glue the edges and have a nice little secret tuck spot there for maybe a table of contents or something. I don't know. That's fun. Didn't know that happened till just this moment. The inside's nice and grungy. I did tear a piece or 2 when I was playing around with it because, you know, paper gets wet. It's very delicate. But look at the edging. It's so awesome. I love those dark edges. And then it gets a little bit lighter in the center. All the pages aren't that dark. All the pages are different because the coffee got in there differently. Here's one. You know, I can either tear it out or put washi tape there or collage over it with different pieces, making sort of a Franken page, an intact Franken page. So I am really happy with it. If I can deal with writing over what I'm going to do, and hopefully I'll be able to do it before I post this video, and I'll tack it on the end. But I was just going to take my iron to the pages and start at the, look at there. It's just coffee. Isn't that awesome? There's the back. But what I want to do is I'm going to put a towel here and just iron it and see how it turns out. Iron some of those creases out and just see how and I quite like ironing. This will take maybe 20 minutes, half hour of my life, and I like ironing. Seeing things that are all jacked up get back to pristine or close to pristine as possible. So if I do that before we post, I'll put that on there. But the 2 different ways that I did it, one was just immersing the book in it's a little bit bigger than 9 by 13 pan full of strong instant coffee. And just squishing it through. And you'll see that on the video. The other one, I took great pains. I both did it. That's fun. I took great pains to spray it on each page. I started at the back and I sprayed and I flipped and I put coffee and I flipped page by page and then laid it down. And to me, it seems like this is the one that I did that to. I'll have to really look at the videos because I've moved them around a million times. I don't know which is which anymore. But this one, as you can see, I can easily write in here. This is not nearly as wrinkly as the other one. So this one I might just use as an autumn, the whole season, September, October, November glue book. It would be beautiful for that because the writing might be problematic if it doesn't tame down with the ironing. And if I have one that I can write on without ironing, why would I iron it? So I might just skip that whole thing altogether. But know that that's an option. If you try to do this and you get really wonky pages, you can just press them. You can just iron them like you do any other coffee dyed paper. Just be very careful. Keep the iron on low. Take your time with it. But this one turned out perfectly too. Look at all the, I got stuff coming out all over the place. Very vintage front page. Oh look, that one is coming apart in the back, so I can have 2 secret pockets. Although I love that. If I can get the rest of this off, wouldn't that be just a beautiful cover for a fall journal? I wouldn't have to do anything to it. Except maybe glue something down where this paper is sticking. I could re-wet it. I'll probably regret not re-wetting it. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. I love that. Did you know that was underneath every composition book we ever buy at Walmart? Isn't that wonderful? The front I'll probably be a little more judicious with and wet it as much as I can and get rid of that. And we'll let that sit for a few minutes. As promised, I will show you my kit. I don't think I printed all the pages. I'm pretty sure there are several more pages to this, I think. I got it quite a while ago. But I love their like little dioramas or little rooms of yumminess. Sitting by the, watching the fall leaves fall. Cup of something wonderful, comfy chair to sit in. Stack of good books to read. I don't know what that is. I guess that's the cup of something wonderful. Look at all the cups. Must be having company. So cute. Little cottage. Just adorable. So this is meant to fold in half and have journal page. Put it in a 9x6 cover and you have a beautiful fall journal. If I were using this kit as that, I would coffee dye the back of this with my coffee dyed, probably the pumpkin spice and the regular because it's all the right colors, the browns and the oranges. So I would just run it through my printer because I don't have a laser printer. I can't get this wet. It'll jack up the whole thing. If I spray coffee on this, all my beautiful pretties will go away. So I just run it through my printer with my coffee dyed paper, and I'll throw a picture up here, pumpkin spice and regular coffee dyed for you. And then I wouldn't have that problem of yummy, warm, cozy, vintage, winter white, summer bright. I'd have fall cozy cottage, ooh, creamy coffee warm on the back as well. But I got these to glue. I'm going to cut them in half and glue them on various pages in my journal. The cottages I'll probably use in the glue book. Here's another little, like a, I don't know, an outdoor cafe, sort of a serve yourself. So cute. Another little cottage. Reading by the fire. I won't use her. I'll cut the fire out, even though she's all cozied up reading a book. I prefer the empty seat. Beautiful writing in the background. I just love this kit. Some fun tags. And I can stick in my little secret pockets there if I want to. some envelope, some fun little jars, mason jars. So funny now that I know about artificial intelligence, AI generated images. You can spot them from a mile away. They're beautiful, wonderful, but they have no soul. No human hand has ever touched that. He just put in a watercolor cafe latte overflowing with whipped cream, and AI spits it out. Same thing. Coffee beans, watercolor style, please. Thank you. And that's what you get. But then somebody has to put them together. He put that artificial intelligence generated, AI generated piece of clip art on a folder he probably already created. I think it's a guy. I'm not sure. So beautiful. These little tags. I love the stack of books. Some more tags. Another little envelope. Piece of journal paper with a cup of something yummy. Nice cozy bed. But look, right in front of the fireplace. What? my logic brain says, no, why would you do that? That's just silly. You want to look out the window, but how would that work for your kit? So, nothing's perfect. And then I have kits that I bought from previous years laying around, and I have my own Autumn Words kit laying around. These things never go out of style. Some people like bright white, so I left it. I would probably run this through my coffee dye for my own use. I don't know why I haven't done that yet, because I prefer the softer, warmer colors. But I like to give you some options and some variations. I love that sort of a rainbow. So cool. And then these are just quotes that I'll cut apart and glue on when my project. This was fun. I did this late last night. I just scraped paint on a piece of scrap cardstock, and oh, it's just yummy. I just used my fall colors, brown and orange and red. They're still all sitting here. I threw in a little bit of green because, and some copper and some gold metallics. And they turned out so awesome. And then I punched leaves out for another project that I'm working on, and they turned out so cute. I don't have one handy to show you. You'll have to tune into another video, because it'll be in there for sure. I'm making a little, I think it's a meander book. I'll get back to you on that. I don't know if that's where it's headed or not, but so I've got all kinds of things to play with here, and I'm gonna turn this one with the least wrinkly pages into my fall daily, quote-unquote daily journal. Let's see, is it loosening up here at all? Get my little knife. It's kind of like getting a giant price tag off something that you really don't want the sticky left on. So I'm probably just going to keep wetting this and see if I can jimmy this off. I would love to have that brown leathery cover as the front of my journal, so I'll keep working on that. I'm going to throw the video in here about how I did this, and you can see how it all happened. And then I'm going to sign off and go put this together. I don't know how I'm going to put it together, or I would do it on camera. It's just going to be tearing and gluing, and depending on how that cover comes off, I'm not sure what to do with the cover either, but I'll keep you posted. The point of this video is you can vintage up an entire composition book. And doesn't that open a whole new universe of possibilities? You can make vintage things out of these composition books. A vintage glue book would be fantastic for all those wonderful vintage ads and pictures that we find now and again. It could be vintagey, doodle pages, book of unwasted paint, but vintage colors only, the blacks, the browns and golds and deep burnt pumpkins, oranges, those kind of things. Use that and then doodle over them. Those would make gorgeous background pages for vintage things. Whatever you use a composition book for now, vintage it up, and oh, now you've doubled your possibilities. I just think this is so cool. It couldn't have turned out better. I'm glad this one got all wonky and one didn't, because now I've got to figure out what's the best way to use this and how am I gonna work with it. But it's just so beautiful. Even though it's not pristine anymore, that profile is, you know, a different sort of deckled edge look. You know, deckled edge books are so beautiful. And again, if you don't like all this stuff, you can iron them out. I may try to iron some of these bigger ones out because they're, and then maybe it'll lay a bit better. They're a little bit out of control. And I think when I iron it, if I iron it, this one's not too, well, yeah, it is. I would do, like I'm doing in a glue book, I do a few in the front, and then I do a few in the back, and then I do some in the middle, and keep alternating instead of working from front to back, because you're going to get that roll. You're going to get that, this is going to be accentuated even more, how that front juts out. You want it to sit, you know, as nice as and even as it can versus crooked. And working all over the place, whether you're gluing or ironing, will help with that, I think. So here's the video on me making a mess with these. So I started off with my coffee spray, but it wasn't moving fast enough and it wasn't going far enough. So then I decided I'd have to, this is kind of my idea in the first place, was just to soak it in coffee. I want to make sure that this tape doesn't come unstuck. Even though I can glue it back on, I'd rather just keep it as close to intact as I can. I need it to be tilted up just a little bit. So I'm going to take anything I can to tilt so my coffee goes to a deep end. And even though I sprayed it and I have smushed it several times, there are still pristine pages in here, and I don't want that. So I'm going to get the coffee up there and just move it around with my hands. They're not all going to be the same, and that's fine, but I want it to be all vintage, not some vintage and some white. So I'm going through while I can. You can't do this too long because the paper's going to turn back to pulp the longer it soaks. It can soak a long time, but manipulating it here on the edges where it's all wet, it will start to come back apart on you if you're not careful. I've already done this on several pages, but I wanted to show you because I don't think pictures would do it. Just got to make sure to get in where it hasn't gone before. What's interesting to me is it's absorbing all this water, and when I first started, it was a brand new book, and that white that you see there is not paper, it's the cover. See, I'll take the paper away, and you still see that white. So that's the cover. So you don't see the paper over it. It's perfectly flush. But now that it's soaking up the water, you can see how far the paper has expanded, and that's happening on both ends. Here. I hope that when it dries, he'll shrink back down. We'll see. This is all an experiment. But I have an idea for my fall journal. I want it to be a composition book. I've picked out some beautiful digikits, and I have loads of fall paper. I could just use that too. I may do that. I don't know. Although, you know, once you get your heart set on a digikit, it's hard to settle for anything else. The other thing that I'm doing is, once in a while, is pulling it up so that the coffee goes down there in the seam. Ideally, I don't want any bright white. I want it nice and fall colors, vintage, off-white, yellowed, coffee stained. That bright white, that's snow and bright white sunny days, and that's not the look that I'm going after. So I want it to get all the pages. How are we doing? Doing all right. I'm sure it'll soak through if I just let it soak for a little while, which is what I'm going to do next. But I am going to soak it so that that spine is up out of the liquid. This will probably work better, my little paint kit. I don't mind the notebook up in the water, but I don't want the spine up in the water, in the coffee. So if I give it something to rest against, hopefully it'll... I wonder if I flip it over and do some of the same thing. Oh, there's a good idea. Kind of want to not get them wrinkled, even though that makes a really cool look. It's hard to write on, and this is going to be a writing journal if I have my way. Yeah, it's looking good. So I think I'm just going to let it soak here for a little bit. I may take it out of there and let it just soak, because that's getting kind of roughed up and I want to keep that as intact as I can. Maybe I will squeeze as much out as I can. And then just let it do what it's gonna do. And we'll see. I'm back. I did some ironing, so you can see quite a difference between what it looked like before and what it looks like now. It's still not perfect. I spent 15 minutes. I didn't want to spend any longer than 15-20 minutes on it. And since I'm going to use the other one for journaling and writing, this one does not have to be super smooth. But I think with more ironing, the more you iron it, the more it's going to be smooth. So it just depends on how much time you want to put into it. It turned out pretty well. This is totally writable now, for sure, right onable. I didn't iron every single page, so you'll see there's still some three-dimensional creases going on, for sure. But it's way better, and if all I'm going to do is use it as a glue book, a vintage fall dark themed glue book, well then the pages don't have to be pristine enough to write on. They're fine enough to glue on. And I watched closely the other video, the two different applications of getting coffee dye to these composition books. And strangely enough, this one that was so kittywampus and wavy and twice this width because of the carnage was the one that I held and sprayed. I held it in that pan and I sprayed the water, and then I put down the page and I sprayed the water, and they got all wavy on me. The one that I just soaked in the pan and splashed the water up in and squeezed it around like this is the one whose pages are pretty flat. Not very flat inside, but now look at the difference here. I almost, not quite, want to iron these a little bit because it's laying so much better. I don't know if it's coming through. There you can see. It is so pretty the way that it waves. I'm just going to leave it. I think it's beautiful. So it depends on what kind of look you want. If you want lots of texture and personality on each page, spray it, fold it, spray it, fold it. If you want just to get a little bit of color on each page, hold it in and splash it up. Do some manipulating. Because this is the one that had just a little rip at the top right here. So I know this is the first one that I did because I recognized that. I put a piece of paper towel on here after I pulled off this part to try to get the rest of that off, but that is on there really good. So I put a piece of paper towel on it. I misted it with my water. I let it sit for a little while, and then I scraped it off. I did that 2 or 3 times, and it's still pretty junky. Again, depends on how much time you want to put into it. I think if I kept screwing around with it, I could get it all off. But I'm just going to put something festive over it and leave this. It almost looks like leather. It is so cool. It's a little shiny. I'll probably have to, once I put whatever I'm going to put on here, put my homemade Mod Podge on to take down that sheen. That'll go away with the homemade Mod Podge, which, by the way, I have just posted recently to my Patreon page. If you've not been there, there's loads of free stuff. You don't have to be a patron to get it. There's lots of stuff for patrons too, but just flat out freebies. And my Mod Podge recipe is there now for you to download and print and use. The reason I like mine the best is because it still has a sealer in it, because you do use a little bit of the real Mod Podge, but there's no sheen at all. So if I glued tissue paper on here or a napkin on here, it would look like it was part of the cover. I love it. So try it if you want. I will put a link to that below. So they worked out pretty well. I'm gonna use this one for my writing journal for fall, and this one for my something else. I don't know exactly what. I have all kinds of ideas now that I want to do. There we go. Vintage composition books. What fun we can have. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you try this. I think it's great fun, and as I said, I think it opens up an entire universe of new possibilities. You have a lovely, lovely crafty day. Go love up your beastlies, because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. I'll take at the lake. Oh, for now.